Hi, welcome back to the Inner Labyrinth. I'm your host, Debbie, and today's topic is going to be about resistance. Resistance has been showing up for me, particularly today, so I thought let's make an episode about it in order to name it, right? I feel like once you name something, you can kind of work around it because now you're starting to understand it. Now you're starting to come to terms with it, have a relationship with it, because now you know exactly what you're dealing with, what you're navigating, what you're working to overcome. So I wasn't even quite aware of what resistance was until shortly before I launched my first episode. I had come across this YouTube video where the creator said something about resistance, and that's the first time that I heard that word. And he went on to say that resistance basically shows up whenever you're on the verge of creating something new, when you're on the verge of creating something, right? And you're going to feel this constant pull and push away and towards that thing that you want. And it's because it's your ego trying to keep you safe. Your ego is trying to keep you back in the comfort zone. Your ego does not want you to expand. Your ego's job is to keep you safe, right? And once he named that, I feel like that planted a seed for me because at that point in time, I had been getting the equipment, doing the research, pretty much creating the podcast, right? Coming to terms with how I would do it, having ideas, and at the same time feeling some kind of heaviness in my heart about it, some kind of tension, almost like whenever I felt called to do research on the equipment, whenever I felt called to brainstorm, I also felt this tension that said, why? Why bother? Right. And so resistance can show up in different ways. It can show up as procrastination. It can show up as overthinking, as anxiety. It can show up as just having to do anything but working on that thing you want to work on. So all of a sudden you're cleaning, but you weren't going to clean. You're actually going to sit down and work on your project, right? Work on your podcast, work on your creative endeavor. And for me, it was showing up. And so when that creator named it, I felt like, oh, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And then shortly thereafter, like within that first week, I came across another video from a different creator that also said resistance. And so for me, I don't believe in coincidences. So I kind of felt like I was meant to come across this before launching the podcast because I was meant to know what I was dealing with. I was meant to become aware of it. And so it's going to come up and it's going to keep coming up, right? That's a thing too. It's not something that's going to go away. It's going to continue to exist because as you continue to expand, to create something new, to change, to evolve, there's a constant pullback. There's a constant pullback from your ego that says, no, come back. Come back here. Stay safe. Like don't do that. Don't go out and play. Don't make something new. What if this? What if that? Right? So for me, resistance has been this thing that's been very alive for me. It's been very alive. And I feel like today in particular, for example, I woke up and I did my routine, right? I was like, okay, great. I've been having like really great routine days. Like I've been getting on a new schedule and I'll talk about that in a future episode. But I noticed that even though I was doing all the right things for myself, that I was having this anxious feeling, this negative thought loop, this pulling back into the past, this thing that I had to keep on battling, right? And I realized what it was. I named it and I was like, oh, this is resistance. I feel like a part of me, well, no, I know, right? But a part of me, maybe my subconscious knows that I'm going to film today. And instead of saying like, hey, let's go ahead and put all of our energy towards filming, that part of me, my ego probably says, no, let's go ahead and instead of putting our efforts toward this productive thing, let's go ahead and stress this girl out. Let's go ahead and pull her back to safety. Let's drain her energy. Let's fill her with self-doubt. Let's have her overthink things that don't even matter anymore. Let's have her just what if her day away. Let's stress her out pretty much, right? And so I realized, I was like, what's going on? Like, why am I not having like an amazing time right now? And I was like, oh, I think it's because I know I'm going to film today. So resistance is coming up right now because it makes sense that it's going to come up right now, right? And resistance comes up for people in different ways. For me, it's definitely overthinking. Overthinking, ruminating, what ifing. I just kind of get hooked back into these thought loops and it doesn't help me, but it does help to know, oh, it's resistance. So then the moment I start to put my attention towards just doing this thing anyway, going through my structure, going through my routine, sitting down and just making the episode, clicking play. And it's funny is I noticed that I was having a challenging time even clicking play. Perfectionism. That's another way it can show up. For me, it definitely does. Because I was very attuned with like, oh, it needs to sound a certain way, it needs to look a certain way. I need to talk about the thing in a certain way. I need it all to be so perfect, so perfect. But it's like, perfection isn't a real thing. All you really do is just try your best and then learn and then adapt, adjust, pivot, learn, keep trying. All you really do is you just keep going back and adjusting and then trying again. That's all that you're doing, right? There's no real perfection to reach to. It's great to have goals, right? And to have this ideal version of yourself that you're working towards. But I feel like it's very important to not stunt yourself, to not think, oh, I need to be that person right now. And it's like, no, I just started. This is my second episode. I'm not in the place I'm going to be a year, 7 years from now, because by that time I'll have more experience, I'll have found my voice, I'll be more aware, I'll have learned more, right? So how am I trying to make myself be somebody that I'm not yet? All I'm really doing is just trying my best right now. And that's all that I'm ever going to be doing. And your best baseline is always going to be changing. It's always going to be your best a year ago is not your best right now, right? So that's kind of the thing with perfectionism. So I noticed that I was having a hard time even just sitting down and recording, and I was having these false starts. So I kept recording, trying it, recording. And then I just thought, you know what? I need to go for it. I need to just click play and commit. I've got to just commit. I'm going to record it. And the moment that I started recording, the moment that really I started to even sit down to brainstorm, though, I felt that the resistance started to fade away. And it does start to fade away because it's almost like you're doing the thing where ego cannot go. Ego right now cannot run the show, and it's not. Right now, it's a different version of myself. It's, I would say, my true self. It's the part of me that's exploring, that's curious, that's expanding, that's trying something new. And the ego has never been here before, so it can't tell me, don't, right? It already tried the whole day. It's been trying, and it's not going to give up, I'm sure. But it's almost like you need to dive into the pool of water. You need to dive into the deep end and just see what happens. And I felt, and I have been feeling from the moments that I take breaks or work on something else, my brain, the rumination steps in and says, hey, what about this old memory? What about this thing in the future? What if this goes wrong? What if, what if, what if? And it's exhausting. And it's exhausting. But the loophole that I found, though, is, oh, but if I start working on my project, if I start working on this podcast, the rumination lessens because I'm not feeding it anymore. I think that's important to realize, is that even the rumination is going to be your partner in the creation process. You don't have to feed it. And in fact, actually going forward and making that thing you're trying to make anyway is actually going to lessen that voice. And you're going to start to have more self-trust in yourself at the same time, right? Because despite this constant push, pull tension that you're feeling, you're still creating. And I kind of feel like tension, this resistance is probably also coming up because you're doing something that you're meant to do, right? It doesn't always show up. It doesn't always show up. I feel like for me, at least, it shows up in places that I know that there's going to be growth there for me and something that's meant for me, right? So I feel like resistance shows up when it's something that's good for your soul. That's something that's going to help your soul grow in a certain way. And that's why your ego gets so full of fear. That's why your ego says, no, like, I don't know that version of you. I don't know that version of you. So please stay. Please stay. I know this one. I know this one. So let's just stay here. Let's not grow. Let's not expand. Let's not try something new. And that's the thing. It's almost like maybe it's good to just look at resistance as a threshold. Look at it as an invitation. Look at it as a sign that you're on the right path, that you're on the right trajectory, that you're going the right way. Okay? Because resistance would not show up this heavily if you weren't meant to do this. And this is whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? I feel like resistance is such an interesting thing. And it's so sneaky and it adapts to you. And I feel like the more that you get to know that part of yourself, the more that you just become aware of it and are just kind of homies with it. You're like, okay, resistance, I see you. I see you. I see you're trying to protect me, because that is what it's trying to do. I don't think resistance is like a bad guy. I don't think the ego is a bad guy. I feel like the ego is just trying to protect you. It loves you. It's trying to love you in the only way it knows how. It's trying to do that, trying to control you and trying to keep you in a certain place, but it loves you. It wants the best for you. And it only has certain tools. And so I think ego deploys resistance as a way for you to stay in the same space, to stay in the same spot, right? And so that's why I feel like it's really good to just be compassionate with yourself. Realize like, hey, I'm scared. I'm nervous. I'm feeling tension. Why is that? Where's that coming from? Is that me? Is that my ego? Why am I overthinking? Why am I perfectioning this day away? Why am I thinking these thoughts? Just kind of start to analyze yourself and self-reflect, and then you'll find that a lot of that isn't really you, it's your ego. It's your ego doing resistance. And in that moment, if you're not aware of it, you think it's you. You think, oh, I'm scared. I'm this. But when you name it, you realize, like, oh, that's a layer. That's a layer that I'm feeling right now because I'm going to try something new. And so my ego is trying to keep me safe. Because you yourself, I really believe that you yourself, your true self, isn't scared, isn't fearful. I feel like your true self is so comfortable in creativity and curiosity and expansion and trying new things and going to new places and running around and playing and having a great time. But it's your ego that I think puts these boundaries or restrictions in your life to try to keep you safe, to try to keep you in what you know already. And so I kind of feel like it's good to have this relationship with yourself and have compassion with yourself too. I don't think you're going to master this in one day, like, oh, I named resistance, so now I know, like, now I'm good. No, it's a constant evolving thing. And I just feel like be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself as you navigate it, while at the same time seeing that resistance is coming up because you're on the right path, because you're doing the right thing, right? I feel like it's good to just take that as an invitation, right? Like today, I was feeling so tense today, so tense. And I was doing all the right things, I was doing all the right things. And I just felt, and even now I can sense it. Even now, as I'm talking about it, even now, as I'm naming it, I can sense it trying to come up and say, like, hey, no, stop talking about me. Hey, no, stop. Like, don't do that. Don't do that because of this, because of that. But it's like, no, it's okay. I sense it in my body. I know it's going to be there. And I'm going to just continue to do what I need to do because I feel like whenever you try to expand and try something new, you're always going to have that voice in the back of your head that says, no, don't come back. What if everything falls apart? What if everything goes wrong? Right? And that voice is never going to go away. It's not going to go away. It changes in volume. Sometimes it pauses, but if you're trying something new, it's going to start screaming at you in different ways, right? It'll come up, like I said, in overthinking, procrastination, perfectionism, distractions. It'll come up in any type of way. And I feel like it's good to just be aware of it and to form this relationship with yourself of self-care and self-trust and just trying your best, but don't delay in doing the things that you want to do because of that voice. In fact, I would invite for you to just move forward and doing whatever it is that you want to do. You want to start writing a book? Write that book. You want to run a marathon? Go run the marathon. Go do whatever it is you want to do. Basically, go do whatever it is you want to do. And then realize that whenever you do something new, notice that voice is always there. And maybe in the past, maybe ask yourself, where has that voice stopped me before in the past? Where has that voice actually won? And I don't think that that's bad. Sometimes it wins, sometimes it brings up really good points that makes you think, why would I do that? Why would I move there? Why would I take up that new job? Why would I try this new endeavor? And I feel like ask yourself, where in the past has my resistance won / beat me? Right? And I feel like give yourself compassion for that version of yourself, because I also do think that everything works out for a reason. But I do think that if you're watching this right now, that you're meant to watch this. And I feel like resistance is meant to be named and it's meant to be observed and almost, I'm getting the vision of like almost invited to sit down with you. Invited to sit down with you, give it some tea, give it something to just chill with you and thank it, like thank your resistance because it's giving you a pointer that you're doing the right thing, that you're going the right way. It's giving you a signal, a really strong, huge marker that you're doing the right thing, that you're doing something new. And that means that your soul is growing. And I feel like that's what we're here to do. We're here to grow. We're here to evolve. Our soul is here to expand, to learn, to blossom. We're here to thrive, boo. We're here to thrive. So I just kind of feel like resistance for me has been my comrade, my partner, my homie. even though it doesn't feel like a homie, even though it can feel very anti-homie, it can feel like an enemy, straight up. It can feel like a fucking enemy. I feel like it's here to help me see myself, to show me that I'm doing the right thing, and also to serve as an obstacle, as a wall that I need to climb and overcome to get to the other side. Because what's on the other side is you. What's on the other side of you pushing past this resistance is you, a different version of you that you have not met yet. All you really get is maybe this insight, this idea, this inkling, this essence tasting of that version of you, but you don't really get to be that version of you until you're that version. And right now, if you're having this idea of wanting to do something and wanting to create something, that's because there's a part of you that knows that there's another part of you, right? And you're not going to meet that version of you until you actually do the thing that you know you've been wanting to do for maybe some time now. But maybe you've let resistance win. Maybe you've let ego win. And I get it, and it makes sense. Because, like I said, it's a protective mechanism. It's trying to keep you safe. But I feel like resistance has been my homie, has been my tag along, and it's going to be here. It's going to be here. I mean, any new thing I'm going to be doing, even though before I didn't have a name for it until very recently, but it's always been there. And you just have to do the thing anyway. And then realize and recognize when resistance is coming up, that means like, hey, you have to overcome that. Every single time you overcome resistance, you grow, your soul levels up. I feel like that's what the ego is here to do. Your ego is here because you're also meant to overcome your ego. You're meant to outgrow your ego. Your ego is going to try to keep you in this box. It's going to try to keep you in this place that you've always been in, a place that you know. It's your comfort zone. Your ego doesn't want for you to expand and grow. It doesn't know that version of you. It doesn't know it. So it's scared. And I feel like naming resistance has really helped me. And also being aware that on the days that you're going to be trying something new, and I feel like at least for me, it's come up more in creative endeavors. Like, for example, this podcast, I feel like whenever you know you're meant to work on something that you're meant to work on, something that you're committed to, it's going to pop up. It's going to come up and it's going to try to tell you, no, stop. And then you just kind of have to be compassionate and do it anyway. Don't try to argue with your resistance. Don't try to tell it, don't try to convince it. Don't even give resistance that type of energy, because boom, it's already winning. It's got you. The moment you start to engage with resistance, that qualifies as a distraction. That means you're not working on the thing you want to be working on. Now you're trying to convince yourself, you're trying to convince your ego to let you go play, to let you go do the thing you want to do. You don't even need to do that. You don't need to ask your ego for permission to do the things you want to do. You can just go do them. Stop putting your attention on the things that you do not want to feed and just keep moving forward on your path. Expect for resistance to pop up. It's going to. It's going to. It's its job. The ego has certain things that it's here to do, and it's here to hold you back. It's here to keep you safe, you know? It's here for you to, I kind of see it as it's a cage. It keeps you in a cage, and you're here to overcome the cage, right? And the cage has different mechanisms too. And so I feel like you just have to overcome it. And everyone is on that path, on that journey of overcoming their ego to grow into their most evolved version of themselves. And that's pretty exciting to me, right? But resistance, definitely. I feel like explore that about yourself. How does resistance show up for you? How does it show up for you? Because for me, overthinking, perfectionism, those are the two main ones. Yeah, for me. And then I'm curious about what it is for you, because I'm sure everyone has their own different way for resistance. But that's the thing. Don't let resistance win. Don't let resistance win. Name it, observe it, expect it. Expect it. It's going to come up. It's going to come up. It has before. It's going to continue to do it. It's just going to keep going. It's not going to stop. So I would say name it. How exactly does it pop up for you? When does the volume increase? When does it get louder for you? When does resistance start screaming, no, stop, this is why? It honestly, low key feels like a threatener. Like it feels like it's threatening, honestly, because it's like, at least for me, whenever I'm going to do something new, depending on how new it is or how seen I'm going to be or how in danger it perceives that I'm going to be, it starts to just get very loud and it says, what about this? What about this worst case scenario? What about this other worst case scenario? What about if everything goes wrong? And it just kind of feels like a threat. I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. Honestly, it's a part of you that I think comes from your shadow self, from your subconscious, and it's just going to try to beat you down. It's going to try to keep you caged. Like, it's not your homie. It's not. It's not on your side, right? But I feel like it is. It's an interesting thing because I don't feel like it's your homie because it doesn't sound like a homie. It doesn't act like a homie. At the same time, it is showing you that you're going the right way. It's also like a threshold, an invitation for you to overcome it, for you to grow. So it's like if you overcome the resistance, you grow. But it does not sound like a homie. It doesn't say homie things. Honestly, your resistance is going to be your biggest hater. Expect it. It's going to tell you, who do you think you are? Why do you think you're doing that? Why bother? Who cares? Who are you? It's going to come up in different ways. And I feel like you are going to have to become more aware of how it pops up for you and when it pops up for you. Because I'm sure it pops up for different people at different times. For me, it's whenever I'm creating something new. And the thing about resistance is it's very sneaky and it sounds like it makes sense. And it sounds like it's you. It sounds like it's coming from you. And so it's very easy to believe, oh, and also I feel like a part of us does want to stay in our comfort zone. I feel like a part of us does. I mean, it's comfortable in our comfort zone. I mean, it can get kind of boring, but it's comfy in the comfort zone. We know what to expect, right? So a part of us also wants to get lulled by the resistance. It's almost like a part of us wants resistance to seduce us and to convince us to not grow, convince us to not do the thing, convince us to not. But I feel like you've got to be on it. You've got to be freaking on it. You really do. Because resistance is going to adapt. It's going to adapt to you, and it comes from your shadow subconscious. I really do think so. I really do think so. And it's going to try to tell you who you are, what you're capable of, what you should be focusing on instead, all the freaking reasons to not do that thing you want to do. It's going to do that. And when that doesn't work, it'll adapt to something else, a different flavor, a different essence. It knows you better. No, not better, but it knows you. I'm going to say it anyway. It knows you better than you know yourself. And I'm going to say better than you know yourself because it surprises you. It surprises you how it comes up. Like, oh, the overthinking spiral didn't work right now. Okay, all of a sudden you feel inspired to clean your house. Oh, the cleaning your house, you finish that. Oh, how about we do this? How about it's going to keep trying to pull you away from your path, and you just have to keep your vision on lock. You need to have that on lock. Do not pivot away from your vision. Commit. You have a vision of what you're going to work on, that seed that you're planting, that you're watering every day, that you're keeping in your mind's eye, that you're walking towards, that you see the vision for the future, that you see the vision for yourself of who you're going to become once you water this thing, once you plant this seed, the impact you're going to have on the world, on yourself. Focus on that. Focus. Expect for resistance to be your audience, but do not hand over the keys. Do not hand over your power. Do not give any undue attention it doesn't deserve. And then notice that when you just focus on what you're here to do, all of a sudden things start to fall into place. All of a sudden resistance gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and the volume just goes lower and lower and lower until you no longer hear it because you're so busy doing what you're here to do. Like, for example, this. Right now, I'm in this flow state and I feel really good about it. And resistance is very low. Resistance is very low because I'm not giving it any space for it to grow. If I were to pause right now, to pause and to invite a thought, invite a notion to enter my mind, it would. And it would probably be resistance. Resistance would probably say something like, hey, stop that. Stop that. Don't share that. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that. Why? And it's always going to have energy. Resistance is always going to keep going. I would say it's a part of you. It's a part of your ego, which is a part of you. And I kind of feel like it's important to develop a healthy relationship with yourself, with all aspects of yourself. The parts of you that don't feel like homies, but are homies in their own way. I feel like you have to overcome yourself. You have to have increased self-awareness. You have to have a vision, a purpose. You have to commit to yourself. You have to show up for yourself. You can't let resistance win. You can't. You can't. Deep down, you don't want to stay in the comfort zone. You don't. That's why you have these notions. That's why you have these ideas. That's why you have these visions of yourself in a certain place, doing a certain thing that you love, that you're happy about. That's why you have these visions. You have to commit to them. You have to show up for yourself. You do. Don't let resistance win. Don't, because It's never going to give up, but neither should you. Neither should you. Please don't. Please don't give up on whatever it is you're trying to do. Commit to yourself. Recognize that resistance is there to help you. In its own twisted way, it's trying to help you. It's trying to show you that you're on the right path. It's trying to invite for you to see it as an obstacle for you to overcome. It's, I would say, a gateway to the next version of yourself. Every single time you choose to overcome that resistance, that path, that obstacle in your path, every single time you choose to overcome that, you grow, you level up. But so does your resistance. Be aware of that. Your resistance, that's why I say it's a part of your shadow, your subconscious. Your resistance will also evolve. All the data that you're gathering, it's also being absorbed. It knows you. It knows you very well. And so it knows your new fears. It knows the way you think. It knows the way you tick. It knows the thoughts, the memories, the people. It knows exactly how to hook you back in. And so as you evolve, you will also meet the next evolved version of your resistance. Recognize that. Be aware that that's only there to help you. Remember that. Your resistance is not there to stop you. Not really. You don't have to let it. It's going to try. That's all it's ever going to really try, is to make you stop. But you have the choice to continue to grow. That even though resistance is always going to be there, always nagging, always saying some shit, you always have the choice to grow. You always do. And so I want you to choose that for yourself. I want for you to choose your own growth wherever you are right now. I know you have something in your heart that wants to blossom. I know it, because you're human. And as humans, we're here to create, we're here to love, we're here to live, we're here to make things. We're creators. We're here to make things, right? So I know that you deep down have a calling, right? You want to do something. Maybe it's been in your head for some time now, some months, some years. Maybe it's always been there. Maybe it's this notion you don't really commit to because of resistance. And I want for you to go ahead and ask yourself, where has resistance stopped me? What has resistance stopped me from doing? And how can I show up for myself? View resistance as your adversary, but also as a way for you to grow. I'm getting this image of, for example, in a tennis match, you're playing against somebody else who's maybe hopefully better than you, because that means you're going to have to level up. You're going to have to level up to beat them. That means a new version of you who's better at tennis is going to be the version of you that's going to beat them, right? If that person, your resistance, was not there, you would not evolve. You would not grow, right? And so I feel like, in a way, express gratitude for your resistance. Like, hey, thank you for being here. Hey, I noticed that you're getting louder today. Yeah, it's because I'm going to record a podcast today. Yeah, I thought so. Thanks so much, And I feel like, just see it like that. See it as an opponent that's here to help you be your best self, your next evolved version of yourself. And I feel like in that way, you see resistance more clearly. Resistance isn't here to stop you. It's here to motivate you. Or at least you can see it that way, because you deep down want to do all the things that you want to do. And resistance is here to help you. Resistance is here to show you the way. Resistance is a signal that you're doing the right thing, that your ego's, scared, but you have everything within you to do the thing that you're envisioning, because that's why you're having the vision. And if resistance is coming up and it's getting louder, it's getting more creative, and then that means you're doing the right thing. Right? And then the next evolved version of you is going to have overcome that version of resistance, and you're going to meet the next version of resistance. So it's this ongoing process. I'm not saying it's going to stop. I'm not even saying it's going to get easier. It might get harder. I'm not sure. Right? But I do feel like, if you want to grow, if you want to make the things that you want to make in the world, that you want to see exist in the world, that are made from you, right? As a gift to everybody else. I think that's the thing too. Don't see the thing you're trying to create as something that's just for you. See it as a gift. See it as your impact on the world. See it as a part of your legacy. A book, a painting, an art piece, gardening, anything and everything you do that you want to do, that comes from your heart, that is this soul essence, craving, desire that wants to be fulfilled. You're going to experience resistance, but I want for you to do it, and for you to commit to doing that, not just for yourself, but for everybody else, right? Because other people, that's a thing too. I don't want you to think that whatever it is you're trying to do, because your resistance is going to try to tell you, why bother? Why do that? Who cares? Who do you think you are? It's a hater. It's a hater, for real, but it's going to try to do that. And I want for you to commit, not just to yourself, but to others. because you're getting this notion, this idea for a reason. And it's not just for you, it's because somebody else needs to see that, hear that, read that, experience that, witness that. Somebody else needs that, right? That's why we're all connected. And that's why you're getting this notion from deep inside of you that says, hey, I want to go do that thing. I want to make this thing. That's why that notion doesn't go away. Do you notice that? Do you notice that when you want something in your life, that doesn't go away? It actually only gets stronger. Sometimes it quiets down because I guess you don't really nurture it. You tell yourself, okay, yeah, I'm not going to do that for whatever reason. You let your resistance win. But that doesn't really go away, does it? The idea comes up every now and then, kind of comes back around, orbits you, because it's your idea. You're meant to create that. You're meant to move forward with that. You're meant to take that path, to take that road, to see where that leads you. Maybe it's not that thing. Maybe it's a different thing adjacent to that thing that you're meant to discover once you walk down this specific path. But you need to just commit to yourself and do it not just for yourself, but for others. Others need to see your art. Others need to hear your voice. Others need to experience your wisdom. Others need you. Others need you. Your resistance is going to try to tell you otherwise. Ignore it. Don't feed it energy. Be aware of it. Be compassionate to yourself. See it as a gift. See it as something to overcome. But then commit to yourself. Don't engage with resistance too much. You've got to just commit to yourself and keep walking down the path that's only meant for you. And once you start doing that, you're going to start to realize and notice that resistance cannot come with you. When you're doing exactly what you're meant to do, resistance is not going to come with you. It's not. When you're in that flow state, it's not going to come with you. It can't. It can't enter once you're in the flow state. Sure, when I click stop recording, I'm sure it'll come back in and be like, oh, why did you say that? Why did you do this? Who cares? Da, da, da. But that's my own resistance. And it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop, as I've noticed, right? But I feel like in this flow state, I am untouchable. And so are you. When you enter your flow state, you're untouchable. And I want that for you. I want for you to commit to yourself, to get to that point of self-devotion. You're worth creating the things that are in your heart. Why not? Why not? I know the why not is resistance. I know it is. But name it, form a relationship with it, commit to yourself and expect it. Expect it. It's going to come along for the ride. But I do think that once you enter that flow state, oof, it's peace, it's bliss, because you're meant to do that thing. You're meant to do that thing. That's why you have the desire in your heart. That's why you feel so good when you're doing it. Resistance is going to be an audience member, a partner, a homie, a friend, a frenemy, but you have to commit to yourself because that's where your soul's evolution is. That's where your soul's growth is. That's where you are. That's where the next version of yourself is. That's where your highest self is. You have to keep walking down the paths that your soul wants to walk down on. You have to. You have to discover yourself. You have to discover yourself. You have to develop yourself. You have to commit to yourself. You have to create for yourself. You have to continue despite the resistance. You have to, not just for yourself, but for others as well. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I want for you to question yourself. Where has resistance showed up for you in your life? What has resistance stopped you from doing? And how can resistance help you grow? Right? I am very curious about that. If you're open to it, I would love to hear how resistance shows up for you, because I know it shows up differently for everybody. I'm sure that there's similarities, but everyone's different. So everyone has their own flavor, their own spice. So I want for you to, yeah, if you feel called to follow, to click subscribe, to comment, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.